Good afternoon. Welcome to this session, Hydrogen Economy as a Driver for Industrial Excellence and Decarbonisation in the Baltic Sea Region and Iberian Peninsula. Sorry. This session is organized by Spanish Hydrogen Association, Hydrogen Cluster Finland, Estonian Hydrogen Cluster, and Baltic CH2 Hydrogen Valley. Here you can see us all again. My name is Susanna Kupiainen. I work as a communications coordinator for Click Innovation, which is a Finnish cluster organization. Click Innovation coordinates both Hydrogen Cluster Finland and Baltic CH2, which is why I'm here moderating this session. We will now have presentations from all four of our speakers, and after that we will have a panel. You can already think of questions. We will be including your questions in the panel. But without further ado, I would welcome Simo Säynävirta, Head of ABB Green Electrification Ecosystem and Chair of Hydrogen Cluster Finland.
Thank you, Susanna. Now I can still get my mic on. Okay, thank you. Yeah, very nice to see you all. Good afternoon. I will be talking a little bit about why are we here in the first place. So let's begin with that. So what are the basics when we talk about hydrogen in this context? What do we want to do in Finland? We want to create Europe's leading high-value hydrogen economy by 2035. You may know that Finland has set a target to be fully carbon neutral by 2035, the first welfare society that achieves this goal. And now we also know that these targets, in order for us to keep the planet from warming up too much, we would all need to tighten up the screw so that we get to this net zero situation fast. In Finland, we aim to do this ahead of the others so that we can offer some functioning solutions that help this transition. But what are we talking about? I try to simplify it into one picture. We need to essentially get rid of the fossil world that we have on the left. And what is characterized in, what are the characteristics of this current system is that we essentially power the world with fossil energy. And as a side effect, then we emit a lot of CO2, which then warms up the atmosphere. And this has to be changed. The system also is highly inefficient. So if we consider, for instance, driving a car with an internal combustion engine. You start by digging oil out of the ground, you take it through all the processing, and by the time you filled up your tank and you consider how much of the energy that you had in the first place ends up moving the car, result is that less than 20% of that energy is left at that stage. So we've wasted kind of 80–90% of energy on the way. And that, of course, is unbearable. We have to change that. How do we change it? We have to replace the fossil energy with renewable energy. And the challenge there is that, okay, actually there is no challenge. We have ample renewable energy, as you will shortly hear. But because it is electricity, we have to balance at every second, or fraction of the second, the supply of the energy with the demand. So this balancing is a tricky piece, which then leads to that we have to fundamentally re-architect the whole system that we have around us. How is it then done? Let's look at kind of this electricity system a little bit in more detail, or actually the whole energy system, and look at how can we create value by linking these sectors together. So it starts, like I said, by having clean electricity now as the main form of energy in the world. We will still have other forms around, but most of it will be wind and solar power. In Finland, we have a very kind of a well-rounded energy policy. We also have nuclear in the mix, and then all the other forms that are non-polluting or non-CO2 emitting, they are feasible there too. But majority of this energy will be from renewable electricity. Challenge there, like I said, is that we have a big fluctuation in the power in the system. So when the sun is shining, we may have 10 gigawatts of power generation in the system, and then in the night time it is zero. So what do we do kind of in order to balance it? Hydrogen comes to rescue there, but because we can use water electrolyzer, feed in electricity, feed in water, and out comes hydrogen and oxygen out of that. And then because we talk about hydrogen now, it is no more something that you have to instantaneously consume in your process. You can put it in a storage and then later on use, for instance, in your industrial process, where we today use majority of all the hydrogen in the world, or then you can use it for transportation use cases and the like. But then we can also link it with the circulation of carbon, because in the future we still want to continue using all the products, all the materials that are based on hydrocarbons. But no more can they be from fossil origin. So what we have to then make work is that how do we circulate the carbon in the system? In Finland we have a very nice situation that we have a lot of biogenic carbon, biogenic CO2 coming out of our forest industry sector. And now when we can capture that CO2 and marry it with the green and clean hydrogen, we can produce all the chemicals, all the fuels that we today use in the modern world. And then we can also convert it back to electricity. Here I have an example of using a fuel cell to do that, but you can also feed hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives into, for instance, gas engines or gas turbines, and you can produce back electricity. So it provides for this long-term seasonal storage that we need in the system, because we can now decouple the renewable generation from the usage of the electricity. And last but not least, we need to figure out how do we heat up our homes. And here in the Central Europe, this has been a big debate, obviously, last 2 years now. How can we heat up the homes without using the gas that we don't have? Well, actually out of this process we get a lot of heat as a byproduct. So whenever we produce hydrogen, if I feed in electricity into the electrolyzer, I get some 60–70% of that energy turning to hydrogen, but the rest is actually turning to heat. And now when we capture that heat and we use heat pumps, magnificent technology, we can then feed up that heat and use it, for instance, in the case of Nordic countries, through the district heating networks to heat up our cities. And by doing this then, okay, we have now optimized the system, decoupled these things. This is what we aim to do now in Finland as a forerunner. So this is the way how we make country carbon neutral. It's based on that we have one of the best places to expand the renewable clean electricity generation. So we have estimated in the hydrogen strategy that we published in the summer that we can by 2035 generate extra on top energy in form of clean electricity worth of close to 140 terawatt hours. And when you contrast that with the whole energy consumption of everything in Finland, which today is less than 300 terawatt hours, it means that we can actually add close to 50% new clean energy into the system, with which we can then produce, for instance, hydrogen. And then the expansion plan can be continued, so we can, in the next 10 years, then still double it, which then means that instead of importing fossil energy into the country, we are first of all energy independent, but then in the future we are going to be having a surplus that we can then serve to help Europe decarbonize. If we look at kind of how competitive that would be from price point of view, in the strategy work we looked at the cost comparison of when Central Europe is needing a lot of hydrogen, how does it look if we imported the hydrogen in liquid form from overseas or through pipelines within Europe. And consideration in the end is that we have actually the cheapest electricity, cheapest hydrogen coming from Southern Europe or Northern Europe. And it is very, very cost competitive, particularly when we look at our overseas opportunities. So in a nutshell, this gives us a basis to build the industry on. And what we are then aiming to do is that this builds a whole new leg on our society, which then results in over 100,000 high value jobs being created, 34 billion euro annual value add to the economy, and then it requires some 120 billion investments. It is requiring that we developed this base value chain, which is the generation of electricity, then conversion to hydrogen, and value add related to that. But then in Finland, we have a special focus also on technology and services. So what can we actually develop in these systems so that we can make these systems work in an optimal way? And that working requires huge acceleration. So if we were to reach these targets that we have in Europe or in the world, things have to just proceed in a totally different pace that has happened in the past. And that the acceleration, it's not possible without seamless and agile cooperation across the sectors, and I would say here in today's event, across the different countries. And we will later on now hear concrete examples what we are doing in order to achieve this. But I would leave you with that I think the key thing here is that in Europe we need to build up an environment where we can have a market-based approach to build up this type of society. So without kind of looking at the subsidies to be the only solution, we have to create an environment where, based on the market conditions, it makes sense for businesses to invest in here. And I will leave with that and let, I guess, Pia continue discussing the concrete example. Or was it Sven as
Pia,
next?
yes.
Pia.
Next we have Pia Salokoski, Coordinator for Hydrogen Cluster Finland and Head of Energy at Click Innovation.
So good afternoon, everybody. I will tell you a concrete example of what we are doing in the Baltic Sea Hydrogen Valley. So we want to demonstrate that the hydrogen economy really works in the Baltic Sea area. But let's go back to the history. When we started about 1 year ago, the EU Hydrogen Valley maps look like this. So no activities in the Nordic countries, only one valley in Denmark, and no activities in the Baltic Sea and Baltic countries either. And we knew that this wasn't the truth because there were a lot of activities already ongoing in those countries. So we decided that we will build this hydrogen valley, the first kind of cross-border and cross-sea hydrogen valley in Europe. At the same time, the European Hydrogen Backbone Initiative was published, and you can see that the Corridor 5 there on the upper corner goes from the north part of Finland through Finland to over the Baltic Sea to Estonia and all the other Baltic countries to Poland and Germany. So that backbone was the one thing based on that we decide that we really want to create a Baltic Sea Hydrogen Valley where all the countries are partners. And now we are in this situation. We have 9 countries involved, the main valley between South Finland and Estonia, and then 7 other so-called connected valleys in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and north of Germany. We got EU funding, 25 million, to build this hydrogen valley and show that the hydrogen economy really works here. But of course, you can see and you know that the investments related to the hydrogen production and also utilization and infrastructure are much bigger. But we are in a good position that the first hydrogen production plant in Finland will start operating next year, and 2 others are coming a year or 2 after that, and the biggest one then at the end of the project in 27. So this is a 5 years project to build the hydrogen economy around Baltic Sea area. Of course, we need to have parts from each part of the hydrogen infrastructure. So like Simo mentioned, renewable energy production goes like hand in hand with the hydrogen production. But of course, we need to also have utilization. We need to have the industry, transport sector, which can utilize the produced hydrogen so that the economy really operates. And one of the main thing is also the infrastructure, how to transport hydrogen from different parts, how to transport electricity, how to build the utilization facilities so that it's kind of economically feasible. And we have all those cases. We have the production, we have renewable energy production, also the infrastructure development, both pipeline but also the maritime transport of hydrogen and its derivatives, and of course the utilization. You can see that when we are discussing about the Baltic Sea area, the maritime sector is in very important role. And we have a lot of ports as well as ship companies, engine providers involved in our project. But of course we also need industry. And we have chemical industry and also other industrial sectors. But of course, there are a lot of market issues in the hydrogen economy as well. It's not only the hydrogen market. You need to have the electricity market. And like Sima mentioned, we can also utilize the heat coming out from the hydrogen production. So we need to also look the heat market. So this is not only question about the hydrogen, but it's much bigger area. Here you can see all the industrial sectors which are involved in the Baltic Sea Hydrogen Valley. So there are quite many. Of course, the maritime sector is the biggest. There are a lot of companies involved in that, but also fertilizers, chemical industry, waste sector, as well as energy sector, petrochemical industry are involved. And we have calculated that based on the Hydrogen Valley, the Baltic Sea Hydrogen Valley project, we can create over 4 billion euros investments to the Baltic Sea area. And of course, it's also very important that the communication works well. And that's why we are putting a lot of effort that each of the 9 countries could organize events where they tell about what we are doing with their own language, for their own people, so that there is also this kind of societal impact of our project. But you can follow us in LinkedIn, in X, and we have also just created new web pages. So please look these, and if you have any questions, you can always contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pia. Then next up would be Sven Barkel, General Manager of Estonian Hydrogen Cluster.
Hello. So much of what we're going to do during the next 5 years relates to the Baltic Sea H2 Hydrogen Valley that was already presented by Pia. But just to maybe give you some insights of how do we see the hydrogen economy could be started in Estonia, and what are sort of the bases that we see that it will be developing in Europe as well. So first off, many of you know this picture, but we are sort of keen observers of what's happening with the European Hydrogen Backbone project, and in a way, this picture has been already shown today, but we see that this is one of major changes that is going to happen in Europe in the process of becoming energy secure and independent from fossil fuels. And I think we're, and not just me, but many others in Estonia believe that this is one of the biggest changes that's up in Europe in the upcoming decades, and we would definitely like to be a part of that, considering all the opportunities that this approach will bring. And so how should we do it in this Corridor D that was also presented, and which starts somewhere in northern Finland, and then perhaps would come further south through the Baltic states, Poland to Germany. And probably wind farms and offshore wind farms are here one of the main players, and this type of energy independency could be reached with the help of offshore wind farms. So coming back to the European Hydrogen Backbone view, you see that Estonia, by the vision which was published in May this year, is connected through 3 pipelines. So one is coming from Finland, and the other connection is leaving towards Latvia, and then there's one connection through Saaremaa, which one of the largest islands in Estonia, which goes to the offshore grid of hydrogen. So many of you probably don't know, but in Estonia currently we don't have a scalable hydrogen economy to speak of. So this means that we have to sort of build everything up from ground zero. And this means that we have to set up new solar capabilities or windmills to produce green energy for electrolysis, then store it, and then use it in some type of process. Either transform it or use it for heating or in transport. And this concrete example is weather transportation, as this seems to be one of the easiest ways how to approach to the pilot projects, and several of pilot projects in the transport sector will come to live next year. So by the end of next year, there should be 2 hydrogen refueling stations in Estonia close to Tallinn. But we also have to be quite careful that we manage those projects well, those early stage pilot projects, which are starting to pick up now, and we will see more and more of those in the upcoming years. So technically what we're doing is, in the cluster, we are carrying out the whole value chain development, whether it ends up in the transport sector, industry, or in the heating sector, and we also look how we can support setting up these renewable energy production capabilities. And this type of full value chain approach we are taking to the regions. Estonia is a rather small country, so technically we're talking about 4 different regions. The yellow one is the capital region, where you have maritime solutions, aviation solutions, perhaps some industry and transport as well. Then the blue one is the northeast part of Estonia, where currently electricity is produced. And it is also one of the regions of just transition in Europe. So it means that Estonia should stop producing energy from oil shale and go towards green production opportunities. This also means that this type of energy connections should move from the northeast Estonia to the island region, where the large-scale offshore wind farms are being planned, and which is sort of marked in turquoise in this picture. So there's a lot of interest in this area as well. There could be some industry, some maritime transport, but mostly those islands are very close to planned offshore wind farms and could play a huge role in the hydrogen economy in that sense. And then the green area is the Tartu region, which is the second city in Tartu, and there's a lot of projects planned there as well. So this is a short overview how we see things going to happen in Estonia. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sven. And then last of the presentations, Javier Bray Sanchez, President of Spanish Hydrogen Association. So now we're bringing this to Spain, where we are.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you the vision of our association regarding deployment of hydrogen projects and valleys in Spain and Europe. First of all, let me devote a couple of minutes to talk about the National Association. Our association was created 21 years ago, so we have been 2 decades, more than 2 decades, working in the development of the hydrogen economy. Currently, we have more than 400 members. These members are covering all the hydrogen value. These members are covering all the hydrogen value chain. So we have members working in hydrogen production, hydrogen utilization, transport, distribution, storage, and also services like engineering or training. Also, we have a good distribution in the nature of our members. We have small companies, we have large companies, we have utilities, we have also universities, research centers, and also we have a good distribution across Spain. We have a very good geographical distribution. Even we have members from outside from Spain that want to know what's happening in our country regarding hydrogen. I'd like to say thank you, especially to our promoter members, which are supporting us every day to make our work easier. Of course, the objectives of the association are quite clear. We are working in the development of the R&D, development of hydrogen-related projects. We are working regulation and legislation, education, dissemination, training. Let me remark that we have a strong national collaboration. We are cooperating with several Spanish associations. We are cooperating with the public administration and also with the Spanish government. And from the international point of view, we are, of course, members of Hydrogen Europe, of the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, but also we have 20 bilateral agreements signed between the Spanish association and other associations or governments. In those agreements, we are always looking for a bilateral cooperation at different levels, from R&D to industry, from projects to products, and even in financing. Those are some of the initiatives that we are carrying out every year, but let me remark two of them. First of all, the European Hydrogen Energy Conference. This conference is organized by our association every 2 years since 2005. Last edition was in 2022. Last year was in Madrid. We had 1,100 visitors from different countries, from 35 different countries. Next one will be in Bilbao next year, in 2024 in March. We are more than invited to attend. And let me also point the project census. We have carried out a census of the projects that our members are developing. The last version of the census is a couple of months old, so it was released in July. And of course, in the census, we have several projects. We have identified 123 projects. These projects have been divided in distribution, mobility, industrial uses, integrated projects, storage, and of course, we do have integrated projects and we have valleys. We have 10 valleys detected, and we have 35 integrated projects. As I have said before, in the integrated projects, an integrated project is a project in which the production, we are contemplating the production and the use of the hydrogen. A valley is a project in which you have more than one use for the hydrogen. Putting them together, we have 45. We have 45 considering, I would like to remark that we have a very good distribution of the valleys and integrated projects in Spain. We have in the north, we have in the east, we have in the islands. Together, the projects are deploying in Spain by 2030 11 gigawatt of electrolyzers. If we look into the investment, the total investment is 21 billion euro by 2030. The hydrogen, the renewable hydrogen, which is going to be used in industrial applications by 2030, is approximately 300,000 tons of hydrogen per year, renewable hydrogen. So let me put these figures in context, okay, for you. We have a roadmap in hydrogen roadmap in Spain. As you know, it was published 3 years ago in 2020. In this roadmap, we said that we should have 4 gigawatt of electrolyzers installed by 2030, and according to the census, we are going to have 11. We said that we should invest in Spain 8.9 billion euro in hydrogen projects. We are going to invest 21 according to the census. It was said that we should have 25% of the renewable of the industrial hydrogen coming from renewable by 2030, and according to the census, it's going to be 60. And let me go to the last line. It said that we should have 2 train lines working with hydrogen, and now currently we are developing 6 projects regarding hydrogen trains. Going to the hydrogen refueling station, this is the only objective that, only figure that is under the objective. We expected to have something between 100 and 150 hydrogen fueling stations by 2030, and according to the census, we are going to have 21. We are working hard now with the Spanish government in analyze what's happening here, what type of incentives we could give in order to have this figure fulfilling also the objective. Of course, all the census of projects, including the integrated projects and the valleys, is in our webpage, and you are more than invited to visit them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Javier. Okay, now we are moving on to the panel discussion. I have some questions. We will also take questions from the audience, but maybe we can start with mine. We have now been discussing Spain and then these Estonia and Finland, relatively small Northern European countries. Why are these countries special and what combines them? Maybe you can go first.
In our case, of course, the first thing is the renewable potential that we have. You have realized the sun that we have here, even in autumn. And you put this potential with the technology that we have in Spain, we think that we are going to be ready for a massive hydrogen production by 2030. So from my point of view, the renewable potential and also the technology that we have.
Okay. Simo, do you want to continue?
Yeah, so perhaps if I look at from Finnish point of view, I think there are similarities and then some differences. So I think we emphasize a lot about this sector coupling opportunity, and then we have some special aspects like, for instance, the biogenic CO2 that I mentioned. I think that's a difference. But then looking at the similarities, I think in both cases we have the same raw material and same benefit. Like in Spain here, like you rightly pointed out, sun is shining a little bit more than what we have currently in Finland. But actually, surprisingly, even the solar business is absolutely booming at the moment in Finland. So we have a lot of expansion. But then it all leads to that we have a very cost competitive clean electricity as a starting point. And then what we want to do in Finland, kind of looking at how do we build the maximum value through this sector coupling opportunities that may be a specialty or then not. Depends on how you want to look at it.
Sven, do you have any other opinions on this, or is it the same?
I think most was already discussed. So I think from the general view, those regions are very similar in their ambition to provide Europe with clean energy and to help meet those very rather difficult goals that have been set forward by European Union and towards which we're all building for. So perhaps what is the difference is the potential to use wind in the north and solar in the south, which was already mentioned. So this perhaps brings a little bit different strategy of how you work with seasonality, because there are some minor differences in that, although in Spain there's just so much more sun that it also works. But yeah, so the blowing of wind is a little bit different continuation than the cycles of sun. So that's a little bit of a small difference. But in general, I think the ambition of the regions is quite strong in both cases.
All right. So then we also introduced the two hydrogen valleys, which are now one in the south and one up in the north. How do you see, can these valleys collaborate with each other, and how is the regional collaboration arranged?
I think that we have a lot of opportunities in cooperation. First of all, as I said, we are going to export hydrogen, most of us, to the Central Europe, because our capacity of production is larger than the demand of hydrogen that we are going to have. So we can cooperate from a technological point of view. I think that all of us are going to use European manufacturers as much as possible. So all of us can share electrolyzer manufacturers, compressors. We are going to share this transmission line for hydrogen. Our TSOs are cooperating together in creating these lines. And also there's a lot of work to do in regarding the hydrogen carriers. From time to time, we heard about methanol, about ammonia, about liquid organic hydrogen carriers. I think that this is also something which we can cooperate together if we think that we should have a common market for this renewable hydrogen.
I'm actually
Yes.
interested to ask you kind of out of your census, so you had those 45 integrated projects. Have you been able to kind of get the final investment decisions in how many of those? And I'm kind of reflecting on our situation that we still have. We have actually a lot of potential, and on the wind power side and solar side, there are investment decisions. But then looking at the hydrogen-related investments, I think that there is a lot of promise in that there are lots of projects in planning and in the pipeline. But then we are still kind of looking at how to kind of further catalyze the final investment decisions. So I'm interested in kind of your reflections.
That's a good question. Take into account that we carried out this census in the first half of this year, between January and June. And by that time, the delegated acts regarding what green hydrogen is, what renewable hydrogen is, were not published. And the money came in from Europe for the important project of common European interest, the famous IPCEIs, was not released.
Right.
So most of this census was waiting for these 2 points. Now we have a clear definition, at least in Europe, not internationally, but at least in Europe, about what renewable hydrogen is, and the European money. And in Spain, we are talking about 3 billion euro of public money invested in hydrogen projects in the next 4 years. It's a lot of money. The first millions now have been released in the last weeks. So when we realized the census, when we published the census, just 1/3 of the project have a degree of maturity enough to say, hey, that's viable. But I think that now we are going to increase this figure in the second half of the year because these 2 triggers has been activated.
Right. Yeah, that's important that we have the rules clear so that the investors have clarity on that, how the business case plays out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I will go back to that collaboration. I think there are a lot of collaboration possibilities because you mentioned that in Spain you have already 10 valleys and they are maybe a little bit different from each other, but I think industry is heavily involved in all of them. So the whole infrastructure, do you want to transport the electricity? How are the grid capacity for that? Or do you want to transport the hydrogen to the industry use? I think the whole infrastructure has so many challenges that definitely collaboration would be very good.
What about on a regional level? Do you collaborate with other actors in the close countries or within your, referring to Baltic Sea H2 as a project that has the set amount of participants? Do you take new members or do you have some other ways of collaborating with regional actors?
Yes, there are a lot of interest from the companies to join our Baltic Sea Hydrogen Valley. And we have now answered that, of course, they can come and follow and be so-called associated partners, but we are not able to get them funding. So that's why I really want to raise that in EU level they should think that maybe there should be some kind of new financing instrument for the growth of these valleys, because it's really important. First, we need to show that the hydrogen economy in this valley area really works, but then we can grow it to also other countries and other valleys. So I think this would be very, very good.
And I would briefly add to Pia's point. So absolutely, these valley projects often focus on the infrastructure part of things. So pilot projects, how to get this actual physical production and use of hydrogen going. But there are things where collaboration on European level is also needed, like the critical materials topics, standardization, workforce, where all of us have to work jointly just to get those things right for the next decade, so the hydrogen economy can grow, not just focusing on the infrastructure part, which is extremely very necessary, but there are other aspects. Usually valleys are not financed to do these kind of activities, as far as I think.
especially the EU regulation it's joint for us all, so we really need to collaborate in that area.
Many of you mentioned the value chain in your presentations. Do you have any weaknesses in the value chains in the countries? Is there something that you would need help from the outside? Or any other weaknesses you would like to admit?
Well, I think we did or put a lot of work to build the whole value chain in the Baltic Sea Hydrogen Valley. It wasn't so easy because we really need to have the real hydrogen production cases, which are going to be in the production phase during the project. But that was not the only part. We also needed the renewable energy production and also the utilization. So it was kind of mixed so that we first get this whole value chain to work. But now I see that in the future we need to also put effort to grow it.
If I reflect a little bit from kind of national point of view, so looking at in Finland, we prepared this hydrogen economy strategy for the country, and I think we have most of the value chains quite nicely covered. But then you find kind of think about technology, for instance. So for hydrogen production, we have the leading kind of power conversion related technology developers. We have the leading digital platform developers. But then if you pick, for instance, take an electrolyzer or take a hydrogen compressor, do you have such companies in the country domestically that are in that particular area, crucial area, leading? We would still look forward more in such collaboration. And then what we see as a benefit, if we could have that we have this type of forerunner market where we have these favorable conditions that we can really create kind of market-based functioning systems that is really viable without the subsidies kind of pumping life into the system. We would need to develop these technologies and solutions side by side when we develop the market. So therefore what we are inviting is, for instance, in Europe, we are inviting these certain special niche players to come and develop and in this case now have that development take place in Finland. And if I reflect, for instance, the wind market, so take the wind land-based wind expansion, and Finland has been a very kind of one of the first places where this happened on a commercial basis, so that without subsidies the market is viable. We had all the turbine manufacturers actually do their first pilots in the country, and now we would like to see the same happen in hydrogen, that we can add a lot of the technology, but for the key areas we would still look for more collaboration.
In our case, we do have in Spain manufacturers for electrolyzers, compressors. Our weak points, to be honest, is fuel cells and hydrogen engines and turbines. We don't have so many manufacturers of fuel cells or fuel cell systems that can close this hydrogen cycle that you put in your slide in the right. And also, we have manufacturers for hydrogen refueling stations, but we don't have the interest of the industry. I think that they are not able to see the business, the benefit, the profit behind installing 20 hydrogen filling stations. So but on the other hand, nobody's going to buy a hydrogen-powered vehicle if we don't have a minimum infrastructure for them. So we are in a kind of chicken and egg problem in this issue that we are facing in the short term.
So from Estonian perspective, I think there are many things to discuss, but I think one of the main aspects is to get the political decision to go towards hydrogen quite strongly. I mean, there are people who are for it, there are people who are against it, there are people who are somewhere in between. But I think if we look at the value chain approach, then all comes down to large-scale wind farms in Estonia, and it's about permitting, and it's about getting those getting those rights set in a way that we are moving forward with the large-scale wind, and especially offshore. And one legislation that was recently accepted by our parliament reduces the administrative burden, and that's a good step, but there are still many things to do. So in a way, if we look at the big picture, then getting this large-scale energy production, green energy production right, I think this is one of the cases. And in small cases, it's step-by-step pipeline or value chain development. So we have some companies developing some parts of the value chain, some companies looking to do infrastructure projects. It's technically, it's work with excellence, trying to understand what works, how long it will work, and what should be the energy price for that. So yeah, that's the case for Estonia now, I'd say.
I think our answers, they highlight that, okay, everybody are missing a piece, and then you might have the piece that I need. So in that sense, kind of, I think this European collaboration and how do we really kind of make these things work systematically, that will be very important going forward.
Absolutely. Now we could take some questions from the audience. I already see 2 hands up. We have a microphone coming up.
Thank you. Andrew from Ireland. Ireland is that small island to the left of all of you guys, with Britain in the way, so to speak. And I see all of these wonderful connectivities and corridors that unfortunately my country isn't very involved in, but I will say we've lots of waves, lots of wind, so consider us as part of all of this. This is an excellent panel. And I think you're on the wrong stage. You should be in the plenary room with everybody listening to what you guys had to say. A really nice example of European ingenuity, collaboration, cooperation, big thinking, and people getting together. So the first question you were asked around what the differences are, I think those are the similarities. So you should be very proud of what it is you're doing. The pieces you're missing, and I think this is, I would disagree a little bit with Pia around more funding to move this along. I think the funding mechanism that the Commission is responsible for is to get us going. But we need to go ourselves. And I do think, Javier, your superb presentation around the census and what people are, and I know there was one metric that was below, and I know it's an important one, but that's something we can work on to survive. Your customers are industry partners, but equally your suppliers, as you said, the piece that's missing are industry partners as well. And I think it's really important that we concentrate on a European level to make sure that the pieces we're plugging in that you're missing are coming from industrial partners in Europe. It may be a little bit more expensive. It may take time to get them to where they need to be, but this is an important aspect of what we should be doing from a European perspective. That will feed into the cost of the electricity, of course. There's a reality here, and I think we need to do this. My question is slightly different. Your commentary on heat pumps, I loved it, and such a lovely technology as I do myself. Is there an option here? Are municipalities working with you as partners with this? Are you heating homes? Do you see this actually happening in reality in the census, for example, in Spain? Are there customers through that value chain where you could see yourselves heating homes as a result of this? And how far along in that process are you? And thank you for your time.
So may I ask a clarifying question? So are you meaning that would we use hydrogen to heat the homes? I think the answer there is no. So, but if we talk about kind of would we use the waste heat out of the electrolyzers or anything, and then use a heat pump and put that heat into the district heating system, and then use that heat to heat the homes, then the answer is absolutely. And a case example in Helsinki, we are now abandoning the last coal-fired power plant, and then the city municipality, actually one of the largest energy companies in the country, they still have a problem that where they go get those couple of hundred missing megawatts that would be needed in the coldest winter time. And actually what they are now, they have very interesting openings. They are going to be investing in hydrogen in conjunction with their existing wind power assets that they already have. And then the other thing that they are developing now, they are developing small modular nuclear reactors for district heating usage. So it would not be an electricity case, but essentially kind of they are very much pushing for these new solutions, clean solutions. So we would use absolutely the waste heat and heat pumps.
In the case of Spain, we could use hydrogen. In Spain, we don't have natural gas. So we used during the last century, we used city gas. Okay? We were using city gas for 100 years. Then we imported the first ship, came from Algeria in 1967. And during 30 years, up to the end of the 20th century, we were moving from city gas to natural gas. And we changed all the infrastructure. We changed all the network. City gas, as you know, has a lot of hydrogen. So 30 years ago, we were using something like hydrogen. We were using city gas. And the DSOs in Spain are interested in analyzing the possibility of using hydrogen. One of the agreements that we have in our association is an agreement with the Spanish Association of Domestic Heaters. Today they are using natural gas, and they are now interested in using hydrogen. Of course, there are electrical companies saying that we could electrify 100% of the residential sector, but this is not clear. And if this is not clear, we could use hydrogen. On the other hand, as you know, very close to your home, in London, for example, they district heating is very common, and they are now burning natural gas for district heating. So perhaps something in the middle could be burn hydrogen and produce high temperature heat for this district heating, because using the electrolyzer is true that you have a lot of heat, but at 60, 70 degrees Celsius. So it's very difficult to recover heat from this temperature. But if you look into district heating and you think you can burn hydrogen and distribute the heat, this is something that, for example, Great Britain is considering.
We were discussing earlier that, okay, we need to disagree on something, and here
We have found something.
I will now
something.
disagree.
We were looking for a while something to disagree.
I will use this opportunity. Actually, one solution here is, okay, first of all, today the district heating networks, they are developed towards that they are lower temperatures, so that kind of solves part of the thing. But then the other thing is that what is currently being developed are heat pumps that are capable of delivering heat at up to 200 centigrade. So you could actually use it for industrial steam generation going forward. And I see kind of a lot of opportunity for us when we combine these new technologies that are currently being worked on, that something that was still, say, 5 years ago not viable, like take now directly the heat that you have out of an electrolyzer and use it in your district heating. It's too cold to be used, but then these new technologies could actually help there.
In your slide, you were not recovering the heat from the fuel cell.
Sorry?
You were not recovering the heat
that's
from
true,
the fuel cell.
But
if this fuel cell is at home or is in your district,
right,
you could recover not only the electricity, but also the power, the thermal power. And this is something close to what he's suggesting.
And actually that's very important to look at the side streams, because if you think about kind of what is the cost of this hydrogen, and if you just look, okay, it starts with that you have to have very affordable electricity to begin with, but then once you have that, if you can derive value out of the heat that you get, and then you can derive value out of the oxygen that you have, for instance, also as a side product, it creates this equation that is creating much more competitive outcome. And then when we compare, for instance, let's think about now, okay, in Ireland we would still need to have some heat in the cold autumn day. And then when you compare it to places where you actually have the opposite problem, that you are just having too much heat in the ambient environment where you don't have any value for this, I think that gives Europe in general a competitive advantage that we should exploit and really think systemically that how do we kind of build a system that is now rethought from this point of view that we can take benefit of it.
Thank you for the question. Then I think the next one was over here.
Hello. I'll be very quick because I know you're running out of time. Do you see any role at all for blue hydrogen produced with carbon capture and storage? Because I know it was entirely talking about green hydrogen in the presentations.
Well, if I start from Finnish kind of viewpoint, we are kind of as a nation we are technology neutral. That's a starting point. So we don't kind of discriminate by colors. And for instance, it was we don't strictly speaking have green hydrogen if we use nuclear electricity to produce in electrolyzer. But the same applies to blue hydrogen. So what we should look for is that how do we actually capture the CO2 properly? And I think that is actually collectively for us the key thing, that if you today think about blue hydrogen, and if you were to recover over 90% of the CO2 that you have as a side product, it's no more cost competitive. And then if you do kind of with the current technology, you go with the flow and take 60 to 80% recovery, I think it's not good enough going forward. So we should really look for that these solutions that we deploy, that they are good for the planet in the longer run. And in that sense, we need to develop these technologies further if we were to use them.
So from Estonian perspective, I just recently learned that if we're talking about carbon capture and storage, in Estonia we don't have that opportunity as in Norway, for example. So we don't have these type of geological opportunities to store it in large quantities. So perhaps that one of the aspects to consider. But since we don't have a scalable hydrogen economy now to speak of, then there's also less initiative to go for the blue way, and we're thinking that perhaps we should go directly green and maybe skip this one step. There have been some people developing biogas opportunities, and when hydrogen was really huge in Estonia, they came to me and asked that, what if we do hydrogen from biogas? And I asked why, because I didn't understand why we should do that. But so it's not general topic in Estonia at this stage.
And I think the situation is quite same in Finland. We don't have the storage possibilities either. So we are more looking to utilize the carbon. And of course in Finland it's mostly the bio-based carbon to the kind of long-lasting products, chemicals, even plastic would be possible in the future.
We don't have natural gas.
Thank you. Keeping it short.
We don't either.
I think we have time for one more question and short answers. Was there anybody still? There, go ahead.
Yeah.
Over there.
Okay. Oh.
My name is Mervi Karikorpi and I'm from the Technology Industries of Finland. I have a question related to the EU policy. Yesterday we discussed quite a lot of the future competitiveness of EU, and we know that the former Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi is preparing a report on that. So based on your experience, I mean, obviously EU would like to kind of attract investments, be more competitive in that sense, also talents, but based on your experience, what would be the number one action what the EU should take in the coming years to make Europe more competitive?
Okay, number one action and short answers, please.
Regulation. Regulation.
Regulation, I agree.
Yeah, not much to add in this sense.
Yeah, and don't mess up the market. Let the market actually work.
Yeah, that's that also.
All right.
Short answer.
Short answers, that's what I asked for. Thank you for that. In that case, I know that there are people already outside for networking, so I would like to thank everyone and free you to network. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.